My beloved brother and sister, sometimes the heart breaks so loudly that even your own soul feels shaken. You look at the pieces and wonder how something so shattered could ever be whole again. But what if healing doesn't begin by fixing the pieces? What if it begins by understanding why Allah allows the heart to break in the first place? Your pain is not a punishment. It is a whisper from Allah saying, "Come back to me." You were leaning on something that could not hold you. Heartbreak exposes the truth. What we thought was permanent was never meant to stay. Healing begins with allowing yourself to feel. Islam never asked you to be emotionless. Even the prophets felt grief, cried, lost, and rose again. Your tears are not a sign of weakness. They are a sign that your heart is alive. But to heal, you must understand one secret. Nothing you lose for the sake of Allah is ever truly lost. People leave, situations change, hopes collapse, but the one who controls your heart never abandons you. Sometimes Allah removes what you were holding too tightly because He wants to fill your hands with something better or draw you closer to Him. The next step is letting go, not because you don't care, but because holding on is hurting you more than releasing it. Letting go does not mean you failed. Letting go means you are trusting Allah with what is beyond your control. Every time you say Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel, you are not declaring defeat. You are handing the entire situation to the one who can transform it. Hen comes the most powerful part of healing. Directing your attachment. Hen, you attach your heart to people, it breaks. When you attach your heart to Allah, it heals. Because His love doesn't end. His presence doesn't fade. His promise doesn't change. Oh, turn your pain into dua. Turn your tears into sujood. Tell Allah what broke you. He already knows, but healing begins when you speak to Him. Tell Him, Ya Allah, I cannot carry this alone. And watch how the heaviness starts to lift. Finally, trust that Allah never allows a breaking unless He plans a rebuilding. Heart you have today is not the last version of your heart. Allah rebuilds you stronger, softer, deeper, and closer to Him. Will not walk with this pain forever. One day, you will look back and say, that heartbreak was the turning point. That was the moment Allah took my hand. Your story is not over. Your heart will heal. And when it does, it will shine in a way it never did before, because it learned to depend on the one who never breaks it. Pain is not a punishment, it is a pathway back to Allah. This single truth can change the way you see every heartbreak, every loss, and every disappointment that has ever touched your life. Most people look at pain as something to escape, something to hide, something that means they have done something wrong. But in reality, pain is often one of the greatest signs that Allah is still calling you, shaping you, and guiding you towards something deeper than you could ever reach on your own. Think about the moments in your life when everything was easy, when you were comfortable, when things were going smoothly, when your heart was filled with what it wanted. In those moments, how often did you feel urgent, desperate longing for Allah? How often did you fall into sujood with tears? How often did you pour your heart into dua? For most people, comfort makes the heart sleepy. Ease makes the soul forget. It's not intentional, but it's human. When life feels full, we forget the one who fills it. Pain, however, awakens the soul. Pain shakes you in a way that comfort never will. It pushes you to ask questions you've been avoiding. It forces you to confront attachments you've been ignoring. It strips away illusions and shows you the truth that comfort hides. Everything you rely on besides Allah will eventually fall short. The heart was created to rely on Him alone, and when it leans too heavily on anything else, Allah gently, and sometimes painfully, reminds you that nothing can hold your heart except the one who made it. So when your heart breaks, it is not Allah turning away from you. It is Allah turning you back toward Him. There are people who only discover the sweetness of dua after they taste the bitterness of loss. There are people who only experience the depth of sujood after their heart has been shattered. There are people who only recognize the value of Allah's closeness when everyone else becomes distant. And there are people who only learn the reality of tawakkul, a true trust, after every worldly support disappears. So pain is not a punishment, it is a gentle redirection. It is Allah removing the distractions one by one until you finally see Him clearly. Sometimes your heart breaks. AKs because you were holding it in the wrong place. You were seeking safety in someone who could not protect you, seeking permanence in something temporary, seeking love from a heart that was itself fragile. Allah loves you too much to let you build your life on something that cannot hold it. So He allows the breaking not to destroy you, but to pull you away from what would have eventually destroyed. Pain can also be a purification. Just as fire purifies gold, trials purify the heart. They burn away arrogance, entitlement, and illusions of control. They wash away sins you may not even realize you carried. Every tear sheds something harmful. Every heartbreak dissolves something unhealthy. Every loss removes something that was holding you back. Allah uses pain to make you lighter, cleaner, softer, and more sincere. What feels like breaking is often reshaping. And in the quiet moments of pain, when the world feels dark, that is when you discover the true meaning of Allah's nearness. You begin to understand that the comfort He gives is unlike any comfort found in this world. You realize that when Allah heals, He does not just heal the heart, He transforms it. He replaces bitterness with gratitude, fear with trust, emptiness with meaning, and heartbreak with a deeper kind of love. A love rooted not in people, but in the one who never leaves. If pain were a punishment, Allah would not say that He is with the brokenhearted. He would not raise the rank of those who are patient. He would not promise that every hardship comes with ease. He would not remind you that those who cry out to Him in distress are the closest to His mercy. Everything in our tradition points to a God who comforts the broken, not abandons them, a God who listens to the whispered dua of a wounded heart, a God who builds you through the very things you thought would break you. So when you feel pain, do not assume Allah is angry with you. Assume He is guiding you. Assume He is calling you back. Assume He wants something better for you than what you were holding on to. Assume He loves you enough to remove what was harming you, even when you didn't see it. Sometimes the breaking is the blessing. Sometimes the loss is the protection. Sometimes the emptiness is the space Allah is clearing so He can fill you with something greater. Your broken heart is not a sign that you are far from Allah. T is a sign that Allah is near, working on your heart in the most intimate way. And when you walk through that pain with Him, you will come out on the other side with a heart more connected, more sincere, and more alive than it ever was before. Letting go is not losing. It is clearing space for divine healing. This is a truth many hearts struggle to accept because we have been taught to hold on tightly, to people, to expectations, to dreams, to moments that felt good, to relationships that made us feel alive. We cling because we fear emptiness. We cling because we fear loneliness. We cling because letting go feels like admitting defeat. But in reality, letting go is often the first step toward healing. It is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a chapter written with greater wisdom, clarity, and mercy. When you cling to something that is hurting you, you are choosing to bleed instead of heal. You are choosing to replay memories instead of embracing reality. You are choosing temporary emotional comfort over long-term spiritual peace. But the heart was never created to carry what Allah has already removed. And every time you hold on to someone or something that Allah has taken away, you are resisting the very healing you are asking for. Letting go is not abandonment. It is not betrayal. It is not weakness. It is surrender. Surrender to the truth that you cannot force what is not written, you cannot control what is beyond your reach, and you cannot hold on to what Allah has already destined to leave. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is open your hands and let the wind take what was never meant to stay. People often think healing comes from holding on long enough for things to improve. But healing begins the moment you stop fighting Allah's plan and start trusting it. You think that letting go will break you, but in reality, it is the clinging that is draining you. You think that holding on will protect your heart, but in reality, it is blocking your heart from the very comfort Allah wants to send you. You think that releasing someone means losing them forever, but sometimes letting go is the only way Allah returns something better, purer, or more aligned with your soul. The truth is, what is meant for you will never require you to chase it endlessly, beg for it, or sacrifice your peace for it. If something was written for your heart, it will arrive with ease, stability, and clarity, not confusion and constant pain. And if something keeps slipping from your hands, maybe Allah is teaching you that your heart deserves better. Maybe He is protecting you from a future heartbreak you cannot see yet. Maybe He is saving you from a path that would have taken you away from Him. Letting go is not losing. It is clearing the space inside you that was crowded with expectations, fear, and attachment. It is making room for something more beautiful, more stable, more spiritually nourishing. Imagine a hand tightly gripping a stone. That hand cannot hold anything else until it releases what it is holding. Similarly, your heart cannot receive divine healing while it is still clinging to what crushed it. When you let go, you are not letting go into emptiness. You are letting go into Allah's care. You are placing your heart in the hands of the one who created it, who sees every wound within it, and who can mend it in ways no human ever could. This world teaches you to rely on people, but heartbreak teaches you to rely on Allah. There is a deep, quiet strength in letting go. It requires trust. Trust that Allah's plan is better than your desires. Trust that what is coming will bring more peace than what has gone. Trust that your story is still unfolding, even if this chapter feels painful. You may not understand why something had to end, but that does not mean the ending was wrong. Sometimes Allah closes a door not to hurt you, but to protect you from walking into a place where your heart would not survive. And sometimes He takes something away to replace it with something you did not even know you needed. Letting go also teaches you patience. Healing does not happen instantly. You may release something physically, but your heart may still revisit it emotionally. That is normal. Healing is a process, and Allah rewards every step, even the slow ones, even the painful ones, even the ones where you feel like you are walking backward. What matters is that you are trying. Letting go is not a moment, it is a journey. But every time you choose Allah over attachment, you are moving forward. And there is beauty in that journey. When you let go, you discover parts of yourself you ignored. You begin to feel the presence of Allah in ways you never did before. You learn to sit with yourself instead of filling silence with distractions. You learn to pray not from habit, but from need. You learn to trust Allah not because life is easy, but because your heart has learned that He is the only one who remains constant. Eventually, slowly, quietly, gently, the emptiness becomes peace. The silence becomes clarity. The tears become lessons. The loss becomes growth. And one day you look back and realize that letting go did not break you, it rebuilt you. It made you stronger, wiser, softer, more connected to Allah. It opened a door inside you that could only open when the wrong things left. So let go, not because you are giving up, but because you are giving in to Allah's love, Allah's wisdom, and Allah's promise that He replaces every loss surrendered for His sake with something infinitely better. Letting go is not losing. It is preparing your heart to be healed. Your heart breaks so it can open, not so it can end. This is one of the deepest truths about human experience, yet one of the hardest to accept when you are standing in the middle of your pain. When the heart breaks, it feels like destruction. It feels like the end of everything you knew, everything you hoped for, everything you buoy. Ulti inside yourself. But what you see as breaking is often the moment Allah is opening a door within you that could never have opened without the pressure of loss. When the heart is whole in the worldly sense, when it is comfortable, attached, confident in its own plans, it often becomes closed spiritually. It becomes wrapped in layers of illusions, distractions, and desires. It becomes focused on the creation rather than the creator. It becomes soft in the wrong places and hardened in the right ones. And so sometimes Allah allows the heart to crack, not to destroy it, but to let the light in. A closed heart cannot receive healing, mercy, or wisdom. An open heart can. Pain opens the heart by breaking the barriers you did not know were there. Those barriers can be ego, expectations, pride, or the illusion of control. They can be attachments that suffocate your spiritual life. They can be beliefs you held about yourself or others. When heartbreak comes, it shatters these layers. Suddenly, the truths you ignored become visible. The weaknesses you denied become clear. The needs you buried rise to the surface. The heart becomes raw, vulnerable, and honest in a way it wasn't before. And this vulnerability is not weakness. It is the doorway to transformation. When the heart is open, even through pain, it becomes receptive. It begins to feel again. It begins to question deeply. It begins to search for meaning beyond the superficial. It begins to yearn for something that does not break or disappoint. This yearning is the beginning of spiritual awakening. You start asking, who am I? Why did this happen? What am I holding on to? Who am I turning toward? What do I truly need? These questions lead you back to Allah, not theoretically, not out of habit, but out of desperation and sincerity. Your dua becomes more real. Your sujood becomes more personal. Your tears feel seen. Your heart feels heard. This shift does not happen when everything is perfect. It happens when everything is falling apart. That is why the heart's breaking is not its end. It is its opening. A cracked heart is a tender heart, and a tender heart is the most fertile ground for Allah's mercy. When arrogance melts into humility, when pride turns into need, when self-reliance turns into surrender, that is when the heart becomes truly alive. That is when faith begins to root itself deeply. That is wa. And you begin to understand the beauty of relying on Allah alone. Sometimes the heart breaks because it was holding something too tightly. The love you thought would last forever, the person you believed you needed, the future you imagined, all of these can become idols in the heart. Without realizing it, you build your emotional security around something fragile. Allah loves you too much to let you depend entirely on something that cannot hold you. So He allows the heart to break to show you that the only one worthy of holding it is Him. There is also a wisdom in the emptiness heartbreak creates. When the heart loses something it valued, it creates a void. And that void can feel terrifying. But that empty space is not meant to stay empty. It is meant to be filled with something purer, deeper, more lasting. The heart that was once attached to creation becomes open to attachment to the Creator. The heart that sought love from the wrong places becomes ready to receive love from the right place. Allah never takes without giving. He never empties without planning to fill. The brokenness is simply preparation, and what comes after the breaking is often something you could never have. Reached without it, clarity. You begin to see people more clearly. You begin to see your own patterns more honestly. You begin to see the signs that Allah placed in your life, but you previously overlooked. Pain sharpens your vision. It teaches you what matters and what does not. It teaches you that your heart is a trust from Allah, not something to be handed to anyone casually. It teaches you that true strength does not come from being unbreakable, but from allowing yourself to grow through what breaks you. One day you will look back on the heartbreak that felt like the end and realize it was the moment you truly began. It was the moment your heart woke up from its illusions. It was the moment your soul rediscovered its direction. It was the moment you finally understood that your heart was not created for this world. It was created for Allah. Your heart breaks so it can open, so it can soften, so it can return, so it can be rebuilt in a way that aligns with your purpose. What feels like the collapse of your world is often the foundation of a more grounded, spiritually awake, emotionally mature version of you. Attachment to creation is the root of most heartbreak because the Oman heart was never designed to cling to anything temporary. It was created with a longing that can only be fulfilled by the one who is eternal. Yet we spend our lives grasping at people, outcomes, relationships, achievements, and moments as if they will stay with us forever. We build our emotional homes in fragile places, and then we feel surprised when those homes collapse. But the truth is simple. Anything that is not tied to Allah is unstable. And when you tie your heart to instability, heartbreak becomes inevitable. People come into your life for different reasons and different lengths of time. Some are meant to stay, some are meant to teach you, and some are meant to leave. But we often confuse temporary blessings with permanent anchors. We start believing that a person will be our source of happiness, our protector, our comfort, our emotional home. We expect consistency from those who are themselves struggling to be consistent. We expect loyalty from those who may be fighting their own battles. We expect understanding from hearts that cannot read our own. This is not because people are bad. It is because people are human, yet the heart clings. And when the heart clings, it becomes blind. It overlooks red flags, excuses hurtful behavior, and accepts what drains it because losing that attachment seems scarier than walking toward what Allah has written. When the heart becomes attached to creation, it begins to measure its worth through the eyes of others, not the eyes of the Creator. It begins to chase approval instead of sincerity. It begins to fear loss more than it fears distance from Allah. This misalignment creates a quiet suffering, the kind that breaks the heart slowly, silently, but deeply. Attachment itself is not haram, it is natural. Allah created us with the ability to love, to care, to form bonds, to build relationships. But the problem arises when love becomes dependence, when care becomes obsession, when companionship becomes the source of your identity, when the heart elevates anyone or anything above its rightful place. It becomes vulnerable to pain in a way that is spiritually dangerous. Every attachment that competes with Allah will eventually hurt you, not because Allah wants to punish you, but because He wants to protect you. When you hold on too tightly to someone who was never meant to be your foundation, Allah will gently shake that foundation until you realize it cannot hold you. He removes what harms you, even when you are begging for it to stay. That removal is not cruelty, it is mercy disguised as heartbreak. Think about every heartbreak you have experienced. At its core, wasn't it tied to an attachment? An expectation not fulfilled? A person you relied on too much? A dream you believed would complete you? A relationship you placed at the center of your life? A future you assumed was guaranteed? Everything you grieved was something you believed belonged to you. But in reality, nothing truly belongs to you. Not even your own heart. Everything is a trust, a loan from Allah. Temporary, fragile, and returnable at any moment. This understanding doesn't remove the pain, but it gives it meaning. When you recognize that heartbreak often stems from misplaced attachment, you begin to heal with more wisdom. You begin to ask yourself, did I give someone a place in my heart that was meant for Allah? Did I put my emotional safety in the hands of someone who could not carry their own? Did I build my happiness on something that was never built to last? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are transformative. When the heart detaches from creation, even just a little, it begins to taste peace that is not dependent on circumstances. You stop chasing people and start seeking Allah. You stop fearing loss and start trusting destiny. You stop clinging to what hurts and start surrendering to what heals. You no longer need someone to validate you because your worth comes from the one who created you. You no longer beg for love because you realize the one who loves you most never left. You no longer panic when things change because you understand that the one who controls the changes is the same one who is holding your heart together. Detachment does not mean isolation. It does not mean coldness. It does not mean refusing to love. It simply means loving without worshiping, caring without depending, being close without clinging. It means your heart holds people gently, not desperately. It means you enjoy blessings without turning them into your identity. It means you are grateful for what you have while knowing you will be okay even if it leaves. That is true freedom. And this freedom is what protects you from unnecessary heartbreak. Because when your heart is rooted in Allah, nothing external can destroy you. Loss hurts, but it does not crush you. Separation stings, but it does not shatter you. Change surprises you, but it does not terrify you. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can be close to others without forgetting your center. You can walk away when necessary without believing you are empty. The strongest heart is not the one that never breaks. It is the one that knows where to return every time it does. When your heart attaches to Allah first, every other attachment becomes healthier, purer, and safer. You love people for the sake of Allah, not for the sake of your loneliness. You stay in relationships because they bring you closer to Him, not because you fear being alone. You value blessings without becoming enslaved by them. Attachment to creation causes heartbreak. Attachment to the Creator heals it. And every heartbreak you experience is simply Allah guiding you from one attachment to the other, from what was never meant to hold your heart to the only one who always will. Allah replaces everything surrendered for His sake. This is a promise woven into every story of faith, yet most hearts struggle to believe it when they are standing at the edge of loss. When something you love is taken away, a person, a dream, a relationship, an opportunity, it feels like a permanent emptiness. It feels like something essential has been carved out of your life. But what you see as an ending is often the beginning of a divine exchange. Allah never asks you to release something without preparing to give you something better, something deeper, something that aligns more beautifully with your soul than what you were holding before. The human heart clings to what is familiar. Even when something is hurting us, we hold on to it because the fear of the unknown feels heavier than the pain we already understand. And letting go feels like stepping off a cliff. But when Allah calls you to release something, He is not pushing you into emptiness. He is asking you to trust His greater vision. He sees what you cannot. He sees the storms ahead that you are unaware of. He sees the corridors that lead to your growth. He sees the doors that will not open until your hands are free. So when Allah takes something from your life, He is not depriving you. He is clearing space for what is written for you, what is pure, what is healthier, what is protected by His mercy. To surrender something to Allah does not always mean physically losing it. Sometimes the surrender is internal, releasing the desperate need for it, the fear of losing it, the belief that you cannot survive without it. This internal surrender is a purification of the heart. And when you surrender in this way, you begin to see how tightly you were gripping things that were never truly in your control. Allah sees your struggle to let go. He sees your tears, your confusion, your fear. He knows the weight of asking you to give up something you love. But He also knows what your heart will become once it is freed from dependence on anything but Him. Allah replaces what you surrender because your sacrifice is a sign of trust, and trust is never lost with Allah. Look at the prophets and you will find this truth repeated. Every time they surrendered something precious, Allah replaced it with something greater. Ibrahim surrendered his attachment to his homeland, and Allah made him a father of nations. He surrendered his attachment to his beloved son, and Allah ransomed him with divine mercy. Musa surrendered his sense of safety, and Allah gave him leadership and strength. Maryam surrendered her comfort and reputation, and Allah gave her honor beyond measure. Every sacrifice became a gateway to something extraordinary. The same principle holds true for your life. When you walk away from something haram for the sake of Allah, He replaces it with peace and dignity. When you leave a relationship that is pulling you away from your faith, He replaces it with clarity and self-respect. When you let go of a dream that was not written for you, He replaces it with opportunities that align with who you are becoming. When you surrender your fears, He replaces them with serenity. When you surrender your pain, He replaces it with wisdom. When you surrender your loneliness to Him, He fills your heart with a companionship you cannot find anywhere else. But the replacement is not always immediate. Sometimes Allah tests the sincerity of your surrender by creating a small gap, a period where your hands feel empty, your heart feels uncertain, and your future feels unshaped. This is not abandonment. This is the moment when faith grows. This is where you learn that your stability comes from Allah, not from what you lost. And when He sees your heart is truly ready, He fills that space with something you did not even know to ask for. It's important to understand that what Allah replaces is not always the same type of blessing you surrendered. You may lose a relationship but gain emotional maturity. You may lose a job but gain a path towards your true purpose. You may lose a friend but gain a stronger connection with Allah. You may lose something you thought was the center of your life but gain a version of yourself that is stronger, softer, wiser, and more grounded. The replacement can come in the form of peace, guidance, stability, or a deeper sense of identity. Sometimes Allah replaces what you surrendered by healing the parts of you that allowed you to cling to it in the first place. That healing itself is a blessing greater than what was taken away. And then sometimes Allah returns what you surrendered, but in a better form, a healthier relationship, a more aligned opportunity, a safer path, a cleaner heart. Allah can return the same person, the same dream, or the same blessing, but only after He has transformed you, and often after He has transformed it. What you surrendered comes back purified, Ted, and protected by divine wisdom. Allah never asks you to sacrifice without preparing a gift behind it. The pain of surrender is temporary, but the reward is lasting. The loss is limited, but the replacement is boundless. The sacrifice feels heavy, but what Allah gives in return often makes you wonder why you ever held so tightly in the first place. So trust that whatever you surrender for Allah is never truly lost. It is planted. And from that seed grows a blessing that is far deeper, far softer, and far more beautiful than what you thought you could not live without. There comes a moment after heartbreak when the silence around you begins to feel heavier than the noise that once filled your life. You sit with yourself and you realize that the emptiness left inside you is not just about a person leaving. It is about something deeper, something only visible when everything that once distracted you has been stripped away. In that emptiness, you start to see how much of your heart you had handed over to something temporary. And in that realization, there is both pain and clarity. The world teaches us to fill our wounds with more of the world, more people, more distractions, more noise, but every temporary thing we chase merely adds another layer of emptiness, one that grows wider with each disappointment. Healing does not come from replacing the lost with something new. It comes from replacing the temporary with what was always meant to stay. Your heart was created with a design. Its shape is carved to hold something infinite. When you try to fill it with something finite, it spills over, it aches, it stretches, and eventually it breaks. But this breaking is not a punishment. Sometimes the heart must break in order to loosen its grip on what was never meant to be held so tightly. Sometimes the heart must empty in order to finally receive what is meant for it. When you experience heartbreak, you are given a rare opportunity to rebuild your inner world on a foundation that cannot be shaken. You are being invited to return to the one who created your heart with such precision, with such tenderness, with such intention. There is a truth we often forget. Real healing is not about getting back what was lost. It's about finding what you never knew you were missing. In the moments when you feel hollow, when nothing brings comfort, when the world feels too quiet or too loud all at once, those are the moments you are being shown a door. Behind that door is a love that will not abandon you, a presence that will not disappoint you, a mercy that will never grow tired of your tears. When you turn to God in your emptiness, you begin to feel a different kind of fullness, one that doesn't depend on who stays or leaves, one that doesn't rely on circumstances, one that remains even in the darkest nights. Filling your heart with what lasts means you intentionally replace the noise with remembrance. You replace anxiety with surrender. You replace loneliness with nearness to the one who says he is closer to you than your jugular vein. You begin to see heartbreak not as an ending but as a reorientation. Something was removed from your life to make space for something better, something that nourishes you instead of draining you, something that strengthens you instead of weakening you, something that teaches you instead of breaking you. Sometimes the emptiness you feel is simply the absence of what never truly belonged to you, and sometimes what you thought was love was really attachment, dependency, or an attempt to use someone else to fill a spiritual void. When that is taken away, what remains is the chance to fill your heart with the only love that can anchor it. As you draw closer to the divine, your heart begins to heal in ways you cannot fully explain. You start to breathe differently, not in desperation, but in peace. You begin to see beauty in places you once overlooked. Your nights become softer because you have found someone who listens to you without judgment and comforts you without conditions. The more you fill your heart with what is permanent, the less room there is for the wounds of temporary things. You start to walk differently, you speak differently, you expect differently. You no longer fear loss because you now know that what truly belongs to you can never be taken away, and what is taken was never meant for your journey. You begin to understand that the heart is not healed by what leaves, but by what enters it afterward. Filling your emptiness with what lasts does not mean you isolate yourself. It means you redefine what connection actually looks like. You choose relationships that bring you closer to God, not farther away. You choose conversations that nourish your soul, not drain it. You choose people who remind you of your worth, not those who make you question it. You choose dreams that align with your purpose, not ones that blind you to it. And in all of this, your heart slowly reshapes itself, not around a person, but around meaning. When you finally anchor your heart in God, you stop seeking validation from those who cannot see your value. You stop begging for love from hands that were never meant to hold you. You stop chasing things that were never written for you. Instead, you become grounded, you become clear, you become whole, and when someone eventually enters your life again, they will meet a heart that is full, not desperate, secure, not empty, peaceful, not broken, a heart that no longer clings to creation because it has already found its creator. And that kind of heart, one filled with what is eternal, is a heart that can withstand anything. In the end, healing a broken heart is not about pretending you are strong or forcing yourself to forget what hurt you. It is about understanding what that pain came to teach you. Every heartbreak is a bridge, an invitation to return to the one who never leaves. It strips away illusions, exposes attachments, and reminds you of what your heart was truly created for. Through surrender, remembrance, patience, and trust, you learn that your worth was never in the hands of another human being. Through acceptance and gratitude, you discover that even the wounds you prayed would disappear were actually vehicles for your transformation. And through filling your emptiness with the one who lasts, you come to realize that what you lost was never meant to stay, and what is meant for you will never pass you by. Your heart, no matter how shattered, was designed to heal, not because time is powerful, but because the one who created time is. And when you finally place your heart in his hands, you will see that every broken piece was only making room for something greater, something purer, something more beautiful than what you thought you wanted. You will rise not as who you once were, but as someone wiser, softer, closer to your Creator, and more capable of giving and receiving love in its truest form. So walk forward, not with fear, but with faith, knowing that the one who healed you is guiding every step you take, and your heart, once broken, will become the very place where light enters. Thank you, everyone.